Hello there, my name is Francisco, and yes, you read the title well. In this video, I'll talk with you about the lies that I've learned in music university. Let's go. So, before I start with the topic, I just want to tell you a bit my education because I think education is one of the most important things that you should have in your life and that you should pursue. And my musical education started when I was very young in a small music school, and then I later went to the university. I studied classical guitar and composition. I did two bachelors at the same time in Portugal, and then I went abroad and I studied in the Netherlands and I did a master's. And throughout my education, I've met a lot of amazing teachers who taught me so many nice things and amazing things, and I've learned so much. Also, on the way, I've learned some lies. I've learned some things that actually were not true, and it was one of the hardest processes for me to really say to myself, no, I mean, just because they're in musical university saying this doesn't mean that it's true. The first lie that I've learned is that you have to make masterpieces or that you have to be good. This thought that you have to make masterpieces or that you have to be good is really present in university and in music university. You have to be good. You have to be as good as Mozart or Beethoven. This will put you in a lot of pressure, puts you in a room where it's hard to experiment things. And in university, I've been told that, yeah, you should experiment things. Yeah, you should experiment things, but you should also be good. But these things are not compatible. Or you experiment, or you are good. You cannot do both at the same time. When you're making an experiment, like it's the first time you're cooking chocolate cake, and you have no idea how to do it, well, you just experiment. And probably the first 5 times that you do it, it's gonna be bad. And they tell you to experiment, but at the same time they also tell you that it has to be good. But this doesn't work like that. So when I teach my students, I always try to focus that, okay, this is just experimenting, doesn't need to be good. But once you know how to make chocolate cake and once you have the recipe to do it, then you just follow the recipe and then you have the knowledge to do it well. But this is not experimenting. This is just following a recipe, following a series of steps. It means you already have the knowledge. The second lie that I've been told, it was actually told to me by one of my composition teachers. And this is that you have to choose one path, or you have to write in one style, or that you have to find your unique voice, like it's one thing that, and it will be always that for the rest of your life. And actually, it's not at all like that. Not at all. So when I was starting to learn composition, one of my teachers told me, yes, when you're young, you do a lot of experiments. You try to make rock music, then you try to make pop music, then you try to make electronic music, then you try to make folk music, then you try to make jazz, and then you're always going in different directions. But one day you will find your own path. And this is very problematic. Because actually I'm still at this stage of jumping in many different genres. It also gives the impression that once you do something, that you have to do that for the rest of your life, that you compose in one specific style. And for me it's so much fun to write in different styles. Music that I've written when I was 20 years old is not the same now that I'm 27. So there is not one path or one unique style, and you should have the flexibility to change courses. And I think that's very important in your musical career. This connects to my third point, which is my third lie was that PhDs are smart people. And I'm gonna say yes, PhDs are smart people, but when you study a topic in very, very big detail, you start to become blind to what is around that topic. A PhD is someone that is very smart at one specific thing. they studied one specific subject and they're really, really good at that. So for example, if you want to learn more about Baroque music or about Bach, well, you should really study PhDs who studied the music of Bach in detail, and they know a lot about that. But once they open their mouths and they start talking about other composers, I don't know, Mozart or Shostakovich, they are analyzing under the same light that they analyzed Bach. So they just think that it applies everywhere. No, it's like a dentist operating your kidney. It's exactly the same thing. Well, he's a doctor, he's a smart person, he's a dentist, so he can operate my kidney. No, he cannot. He cannot, because he studied a specific topic in detail that doesn't make him qualified to operate on your kidney just because he's a doctor, you know? In music, it's the same thing. Just because someone studied really in depth the music of Mozart doesn't mean they know about Beethoven. And probably they do not. Probably they do not, because they have been focusing their study so much that they've become blinded for everything. So this is why for me it's very important that you always keep an open mind and that you can change your path, because you become blind to your own knowledge. This connects now to point number 4, which is that classical music is more complex than other styles of music. This is a big one. This is a big one that is propagated endlessly on universities, on social media, on internet, that you count the number of notes or the number of chords a song or a music has, and then you say, oh, this has more chords, therefore it is more complex. That's basically the argument. You see PhDs, they basically count notes and they count chords. This song has 20 chords, this one has 5. So 20 is bigger than 5, therefore this one is more complex than that. This is such a wrong reasoning, and I'm baffled how PhDs and smart people continue to do this. And I've experienced firsthand how such a big lie this is once I started to study Brazilian music. I started to play bossa nova and Brazilian music on the guitar at a group, Brazilian music group, and the drummer taught me so much about rhythm, so much about the small nuances that Brazilian rhythm has. When you write the rhythm down, the complexity is so big that you cannot write it down. If I write it down, which I can, it becomes so complicated that you really cannot perform it well. The rhythmical complexities are very, very advanced, and somehow they're playing just one chord many times. So musical complexity, there is notes, there is rhythm, but sometimes it's also the sound. Sometimes I hear musicians that they play 2 notes or they play 3 notes and I immediately start crying because they have such a beautiful sound. Sometimes this magical sound, which is composed mainly of 2 or 3 notes, it's so hard to really put down on the score. But it has a complexity. It has a lot of complexity. For you to be able, in the classical guitar, to have a good sound, you need to really take care of your nails. You need to have a good guitar. You need to have good strings. You need to press the string at precisely the right angle, and this will produce a beautiful sound. This is a very complicated topic. It has a lot of nuances. And let's say I play 2 chords with my guitar and I perform only 2 chords, and they say, oh, it has no complexity because it's just 2 chords. Well, you have to also factor in the sound that I'm producing. How am I attacking the string? How am I doing all of these things to make people eventually cry or have emotion in a concert? It's very rare that you see someone addressing these topics. The 5th one is a bit more philosophical, that music has intrinsic value. What does this mean? It means that music by itself, it has value, you know, and that things have value on themselves. So if you make a piece of music, this piece of music can be analyzed as itself because it has value. I think that this is a lie, because things don't have value in themselves. So for example, this monitor that I have behind me, it's a thing that it has value, and the value that it has depends on the subjective approach. If I have a monitor but I don't have electricity, well, then the monitor has no value, you know? You cannot just say this monitor has value. It doesn't have. If you don't have electricity, it has no value. With music, it's exactly the same thing. People want to believe that music in itself, it has value. But music is always surrounded by a bigger context. And this I learned by my experience in film music. In film music and video game music, you cannot just analyze the music. You have to analyze everything that is around it. For example, many movies that have complicated plots, one example is Inception, tends to have music that is very simple, that is just one note, or it has even maybe no melody, you know? And many musicians, they criticize this music. They say, oh, this music has no melody, this is the decay of music, this music lacks complexity. And maybe it does lack complexity, but you cannot just look at the music, because the music is a part of a bigger experience, which is watching a movie. And if the plot is very complex, then you cannot have so much complexity on the musical side, because it will be too much. This is something that we even see in opera, because arias are, in terms of text, very poor. They just say for like 10 minutes, I love you, please be with me. This is like typical aria of any opera. And then musically you have, or you should, do a lot, because this idea is so simple. Well, you have to make this interesting for people to see. So music can really, you can make complex music. You should make complex music there. But if you are explaining, you know, the other day I was in an elevator, and then the elevator stopped working, and then I got a call, and then it starts to get a very complicated story. Well, for you to pick up on the words that I'm saying, the music needs to be simple. So complex music has a time and place for that. But if the music is not complex, then maybe it's part of a bigger picture, and you have to analyze not the music, but the bigger picture. Very few people in university do this. They just look at the music, this music lacks complexity, therefore it's bad. So this is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you learned something. And these were the 5 lies that I've learned in music university. Bye bye.